Now, we have a mitzvah of tefillin. Okay, we do it every single day. Some of us, hopefully. Okay? Now, how many of us are like, yeah, I want to wear tefillin today? I'm so excited. Okay, why not? Because it's a rule. Who really cares if I have a black box on my head? God told me to do it. I listen to him. Salute. But I don't care. I don't want it. And it's absolutely impossible to want it unless you see its value, right? You don't do anything in your life, period, that you don't see value in. The only thing you do is things you're forced to do by something. Either you're forced by your job, you're forced by your wife, you're forced by somebody, because you have to do it or else something is going to go wrong, right? That's the way generally people relate to mitzvos, right? It's a very galuti way this is called eved. I have a job, I got to do it. No one asked my opinion, and I got it, and that's just the way it is. And the way people motivate themselves, because people need to motivate themselves, they have to have a reason why it's valuable to myself. So we look for reasons. Schar. Maybe we go on to more mystical reasons. We say shefa. We say words we don't really relate to, but we believe them because we believe stuff, right? So we'll say olomat elyonim and all those other things, right? Now I ask you, this is very fascinating. I'll go around the room. How much does that have any meaning to you when I say all that stuff? Schar va'onesh and shefa and all kinds of Kabbalistic terms. How does it mean to you? The youngest person in the room.
Not so much, because I don't fully understand it yet.
I want to ask you as the oldest person in the room, how much does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's not the primary reason, but it figures in there.
How much does it mean to you?
What's wrong?
No, the motivating factor of like you're going to get punishment or you're going to get reward.
Not like, yeah, like
Percentage of how much you care about that, from 1 to 10.
5.
How much do you care about it?
Yeah, 5, 10.
Okay. What I usually find, and maybe it's not accurate, is that the generations depend. Like in the older generations, we cared a lot more, and the younger generations they just don't care. Maybe it's inaccurate in this room, but that's what I find all the time. Because people who are younger are looking for more meaning than people of the older generations. So what we can do is we can learn the meaning, the point of tefillin. And after we get to the point of tefillin, then we can start approaching the halacha, because the halacha is a guide and how this purpose can be fully achieved. In other words,
Maybe it breaks down into Bal Tshuva and from birth.
could be. Well, how do you understand that? Which way direction?
Well, from birth, it's not something. You had to have some kind of impetus to start doing all this crazy stuff, and that is examining your life. If you're from birth, you don't have to examine your life. It just is your life.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's true. That's true.
Aren't we called Eved Hashem?
I would like you to define the word eved.
Slave.
That's an English translation.
Worker.
Chazal say eved la melech melech. Sounds like a slave to you?
No.
Let's say you have an owner of a company, okay, and he has a CEO who works for him. What would you call him?
CEO.
In Lashon Kodesh, you should call him an Eved. He's one of the Avdei HaMelech. He also has the entire army in his hands, and he can do whatever he wants with the army because he's in charge, right? Pretty a lot of power. So we're saying Avdei Hashem. It's a very destructive translation that certainly does not come from Jewish sources, saying slave.
So
It's a tafkid.
Why wouldn't it differentiate? Why, when the Torah talks about acquiring a slave, it calls the slave an Eved? Why does it do that? It should have called it something else.
Right. So now you understand something very deep. That even when the Torah talks about an Eved Kenani, what the meaning is a worker. And if you treat him not like that, you have bad midos. He's your worker. He's your worker forever. You bought him. Now he's will always be in your company. Not like a Jew who works for you and can take leave, depending on how the setup is.
Still called an eved.
But the definition of an eved, if you have good midos, means a worker for you. Which means if you treat a person like a slave, that's because you think that God treats you like a slave. And if you treat someone with respect as a worker, that's because you think God treats you like a worker. Right? Everything starts with, you can't be firmer than God. You can't be better than God. So if you think God is treating you badly, then you're going to treat other people badly. Which is why all of the abuse cases that I've ever met started with religion. Because since they had a very destructive version of religion, the one that the Crusades were willing to kill people for, right? Jihad, but the ones that the Iranians are willing to kill women for, and the ones that the Mei Yesharim will do hafkanot for, it's all the same midos, right? Or the ones that peoples in schools will destroy their children because they're not following suit, it's all the same midos. Those midos are a slave. And you can decide how you want to be yourself, how you view God. And like we said before, belief is a creative power.
Okay, can I just throw one more in there?
Sure.
Avodem hayinu the para.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that para didn't hold us as more than slaves, so that
we
were slaves.
Technically workers for Paro. Now, how Paro treated us, he treated us. That's why it says in Chazal that Paro deserved an onish. Why did he deserve an onish? Because it was Xera that we should be workers for Paro. It wasn't Xera that he should torture us. He did more than we had to, so he got an onish. Gary Yazaracha be'eretz lo zarura, right? The Arba Moshana was in the Skayim, and the fact that Yitzchak wasn't in his house. That's called already v'avadum v'inu osam. V'avadum. Because Yitzchak didn't have a house. Right? He was going around. That's already a bechina of Eved. The word Eved does not mean slavery. It can. It's a choice by human beings. This is a perfect example. Another perfect example of how people are mefarish the Torah according to their midos. And that's what we were speaking about before. If it's very nice to have all these hasagot, but do you realize how much this impacts this? So if you don't work on here, it doesn't make a difference what you put in here. Like the Vilna Gaon says, the Torah is water. Yarov kamatar lichi tizal katal imrasi. The Torah is like water. You water the ground. What grows in the ground?
Whatever you put in it.
Right. So if you leave the weeds in the ground, right, the ones that are thorny and gross, they'll stay there. And while it grows your neshama, which is the seed in the ground, it'll also grow the weeds, and you'll have people who are para adam in the base medrash. B'shem Torah mitzvos. Right. That's why the Vilna Gaon says you have to learn Musa, Mishle. You have to work on your midos.
So in a sense, the heart influences the mind more than the mind influences the heart.
Well, it's sort of like a dichotomy. You can go both ways. You can choose, right? Because the heart is the way that the mind can process things. It can't avoid the heart, but it can also influence the heart.
Right, influences.
So you can decide which direction you want to go, right? But you have to know that if you don't influence the heart, it doesn't make a difference what you have in your mind.
Right.
But it does make a difference. For example, let's say you're doing a process, right? I do this with people all the time, okay? So you could, if let's say someone's doing something that they don't like in their life, okay? So you sit down with them and you,
Thank you so much. Thanks.
I don't know, a guy comes to me and says to me he's watching porn, okay?
Thank you.
He's watching porn. So we could sit down and learn all the halachos of why that's wrong, right? Or zera levatala, why that's wrong. There's many svarim like this in this direction. Let's go learn all the things that are wrong and right with this topic. Now, how does that work? Does that work at all?
No. Yeah, a person has to understand why something is wrong in order from themselves in order to change.
So the way to do it is the opposite. First sit with the person and say, tell me what you're holding. What are you feeling around this topic? What's going on with you? And the person can go into grave detail of all the things that are going on with them. And now that they're opened and exposed and vulnerable and everything's on the table, then they can take Eitzah for their neshama to process that and go a deeper place. Right? And if you've ever done this process, you know what I'm talking about. It's like a child. The child comes to you. If you go to your father, right, and you start saying having difficulty something, and he starts giving you lectures right away about everything you should be doing differently, how much do you listen to? And let's say he's very quiet, and he sits there, and you tell him everything that's going on with you for a long time, and he really hears it and gets it, understands what's going on with you. Now, are you interested in his Eitzah? Why? Because you're completely there, and you're completely expressed.
I'm always interested, but it depends what I listen to or not.
Okay, so that's the example of you start with your lave, and then you let the heart, the neshama, the higher place influence you. That's the way it's supposed to happen. Okay, so we're learning mitzvos of tefillin. What we want to do is leave the process of saluting and doing what we're told, and going to something we connect to. Now, how do you, if I was giving you this job and saying, okay, Chevra, tell me what's the point of tefillin? What would you do to figure it out?
Ask a rabbi, ask someone bigger than me.
And how does he know? And how does he know?
Because he has a rabbi, and his rabbi has a rabbi, and eventually that rabbi comes from like when they actually knew.
So you're saying without a Mesorah from Moshe Sinai, you can't know anything.
No, you could, but it's just more mixed up because there's people that say one thing about feelings and other people that say different things.
Mm-hmm. And therefore?
And therefore you cannot 100% understand it.
Because there's two opinions.
Because there's 100 opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So
now you're going to ask a rabbi,
okay.
and he's going to tell you his opinion.
Right.
You ask another rabbi, he can tell you a different opinion.
Right.
Like it says in the Gemara. Abai Omar, Rava Omar. Okay, now what are you going to do?
I'm just going to have to take both what they said and try to...
Do both.
No, I mean...
Mekayim kol hashitas.
I'm just going to take whatever one is more understandable.
Oh, so you're going to choose.
Whichever one connects to me more, whichever one I feel like is stood up.
So you're going to start with the rabbi, because you assume he knows something you don't know.
Okay.
And then you're going to have your own personal choice.
Yeah.
Okay, and the only way the rabbi knows is because he spoke to some other rabbi.
Yeah.
And what did he do? Did he choose or not?
I don't know. Did he?
Well, if he's choosing, then you're not really speaking to the Moshe Rabbeinu, you're speaking to him.
Right.
So
I
then
can't
what's...
speak too much right
Right, so then you're assuming that you have to speak to him. Why?
because he's older than me. He learned more, and he's more like, you know, he has more like that he knows.
Mm-hmm.
So most likely I'll get more out of him than myself.
You're saying only if you only get yourself. You want to talk to him, but in the end of the day, you have to choose also.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying there's two things. You should take Eitzah from the Chachamim,
Yeah.
and you should do yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, you learned a lot of Torah in your life. Did it ever help you, what the process he just said, if you want to connect to tefillin, to go learn from whatever, a rabbi or something?
I mean, that's what I did.
Did it work?
I put on tefillin. It worked to do that.
Why?
Because I trust the whole system as a whole, so each individual part I don't question. I just do it because I trust the whole system, and this is part of the system. I'll go with that.
So the midah that you have is a midah of trust.
Yeah, guess so.
So you don't have an internal connection with tefillin, you have an internal connection with the system
Yeah.
from a midah of trust. Okay, that's a great way to do it, at a minimal level. So I want to point out to you that we just learned the Gemara in Brachas. There's 5 different halachim of the Torah. And all of this is called Mishnah, almost all of it. Okay? And some of it's Gemara. In Gemara and Mishnah, you will almost never find the reason why. That's not his job. Ha-mitzvah, zu Mishnah. What is the commandment? That's what the Mishnah is telling you. It's the what. And you're not meant to find it there. So if you go look, you won't be successful. Where are we meant to find the reasons for the mitzvahs we do? What chelik of Torah teaches us that?
Is that Rambam?
What? The Rambam teaches you? How would he know?
Are you saying which part of
The one that God created. What did he meant for us to... It's a very necessity, human need for us to have meaning in our mitzvahs, right? Like you have meaning in everything you do. Where did he give over the meaning of the mitzvahs?
Torah Nistar.
Okay, Gam. Torah Nistar is something which is revealed throughout the Doros, and I'm not saying it's not true. But is that the beginning?
Isn't the meaning in the oral Torah?
Depends what you mean, because if the oral Torah you're talking about means the Mishnah, which is what to do, Shulchan Aruch, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, then no.
Right.
If the meaning of oral Torah is like he's saying, which is called Pnimiyas HaTorah, why is it called Pnimiyas HaTorah?
Pnimiyas Torah wasn't given at Moshe first.
It was.
It was?
Totally given to Moshe.
It was in the oral Torah?
It's also the oral Torah.
You mean the meaning is inside yourself?
Pnimiyas means your inner workings. That's what it means. Right? It means the midos behind your actions. Pnimiyas HaTorah is a study of the midos of Hashem that he used to create the world and run the world. It's for us to learn the midos that are inside of us that we use to create the world and run the world. It's the reasons why we do stuff. It's the push.
Which Svarim have, or which, like the oral Torah, the Pnimiyas Torah that we got from Har Sinai, where is that in the books?
Okay, so I want to answer you in a second, but first I want to go back. The first place you get meaning from the Torah is Chamishei Chumshei Torah. Tanakh. When you learn the Chumash, there's a reason why Hashem wrote it that way. He was trying to tell you the whole system of the world. He created the world, this happened, this, trying to go over here, and he gave us mitzvos in the Torah to teach us the point of those mitzvos. Sometimes it's extremely clear, sometimes it's not as clear, but there's so much clarity in Chamishei Chumshei Torah that because Klal Yisrael stopped learning Tanakh, we lost, because we were in a matzav of galus, we were in saluting mode, so we didn't spend time understanding what the Chumash was saying. Now you are right that our understanding of Chumash depends on our understanding of the world. And there are Svarim that hit deeper levels of a human being, which is called Pnimiyas HaTorah. And the Zohar is the translation of the Chamishei Chumshei Torah in a level that has to do with this part of ourselves. So it's a deeper understanding, right? But everybody learned the Chumash, all the Doros learned the Chumash, and they gave Tamim, mitzvos. The Rambam did it, the Sefer HaChinuch, everybody did it. As the generations develop, they're not interested in those tamim because they're less meaningful, because we changed, we evolved as a more developed human being. We need different tamim. So we look in deeper svarim, and we find things over there, right? But the place always to start is Chamishei Chumshei Torah. And when you learn the Chumash, you'll begin to understand things. Now here's the kutz. Me and you are going to learn the same Chumash, okay? Like Abaye and Rabba did. You know what's going to happen? You're going to think one thing and I'm going to think something else. Now, why is that?
Because
You're wrong. I'm right.
right.
No, I'm wrong. You're right.
No, because we don't share the same mindset. Like I read it in one way and you read it another way, and then we both get to a different conclusion.
Why is that?
Because it's not like math. It's not like 2 + 2 = 4, and both of us know like 3. It's like it's different things to it. You could like see it in a way where God's saying to do it, so you have to do it, and I can see it in a way where it's an opportunity, and it's like so much, so.
What he's saying is that everyone's in a stage of development. We have the rules, but the rules are just a way as a end goal, how it's supposed to look if you're in shleimus, if you're in perfection. Now there's my personal process how to get there. I'm going to look in the Chumash, and Hashem is talking to me. He's not talking to you. He's talking to me and you, separately. We have a personal relationship with Hashem. You open this Chumash, He's talking to you. And He's talking to you about your process. And therefore your neshama, which is connected to a different place in the Torah than mine is going to see something relevant to you today. Meaning that next week you might look at the Chumash and see something different. Now, you could say, last week I made a mistake. Or you could say, you're making a mistake because I see it like this. And you could be wiser and say, this is what I need today. And today I'm going to grow from this, and this is what's going to move me forward in my process of tikkun. And my tefillin mean this to me today. And tomorrow they're going to mean this to me today. Right? So that's why the Chumash is a very personal sefer. And you translate it according to your midos. Now,
Is that dangerous to do?
It depends. If you leave the klalim of halacha, right, then you're going to be, by definition, not getting to the direction of Hashem. By definition, you're going to lose something. Just like if you understand the story of Yosef without the midrashim of Potiphara, you miss the story. There's something off, and it won't bring you to the tikkun that you're necessary to be tikkun, because you need to learn that also, right? But if you stay within the realm of halacha, and all you're changing is the meaning of it, right? That all the Svarim did when they're learning Chumash, like Rashi says, there's drash and the Or Chaim says it all over the place. I disagree with Chazal, but it's not a problem because it's not doing something negative halacha. That's why Rabbi Nachman, when he was saying his Torah, he was saying you have to be makbid on halacha because we're learning Pnimiyas HaTorah over here, and there's all kinds of things that are meaningful to me, meaningful this way, right? And we can end up taking away Har Sinai. Keep halacha, and then you won't have that problem.
Why can't halacha change according to your meaning? Just like if the Torah could change according to my meaning, so why can't halacha change?
It does, 100%, within certain rules. That's why I have different shitos. There's a letter from Shimshon Astapo, and the Arizal has a very cryptic sentence about the Haggadah Shel Pesach, which is code. Rav Shimshon Astapo translated the code. And the basic punchline of the code is where Rabbi Akiva decided that how many makos there were on Har Sinai, on Yam Suf, and Rabbi Yossi Aglili decided it had to do with the gematria of their name. Which means that how our Mefarish Torah has a personal to do with me. So now it means all the halachas, if you realize this concept, all of the machloksim that are in Chazal, it starts off with who the person is. That's why Hillel and Shammai, it's very clear, right? Hillel has his midos, the Gemara Svar. Shammai has his midos. Shammai is dercha more machmir, right? They were more charif. They saw things that have to do with Mashiach, right? Hillel was much more practical in this world. These are all things it says in the Svar. So their shitas came according to their, but there are rules. There's still Yud Gimel Torah, midas HaTorah, and Dreshes Behem, right? You still have to have Gzeir Shava has to be Kabbalah from Chazal. There are rules. When you stay within those rules, then your midos can be expressed.
Is it like if you play chess, there are rules, but there's different styles of playing within those rules. So my style of playing chess is very different to your style of playing chess, but I can't just make up a rule. I can't take my king and move it in 5 spaces. That's breaking halacha. But my style of playing within halacha, I can do whatever I want. In that sense, I can do whatever I want within that framework of halacha.
Right. So if you take it out of the context of Torah, music, right? You're a musician, right? So you play according to your heart's content, right? Are there rules? Right? If you don't play with the rules, what does it sound like?
It sounds like crap.
Right. Okay? Because halacha is the rules of reality. This is the reality. If you leave reality, then you are jumping off a building. It doesn't work. It sounds like crap. But if you're within the rules of music, you can have people have the completely different sounding music, right? Because they're expressing their personality. That's the way halacha looks, which is why you'll see if you learn Pnimiyas Asfarim, they decide halacha based on what they think the shorosh is. You won't see that in the Mishnah Berurah because he's not doing that, right? He's telling you ma. He's telling you what came out of the sugya of Mishnah, of Gemara. Okay? And now there's two shitas. Now what do? So you could be in a place of choshech, which is galus, and it's like, we'll do everything. Now, in this generation, how many people want to do everything? We tried that for 25 years, and since I was a young kid, and it doesn't work. It's not supposed to be that way. How do I know it's not supposed to be that way? Because it says in the Torah, lo sis go to do. You shouldn't make agudas. You shouldn't have different batei midrashim of Torah. Why? In order they shouldn't have shtei Torahs. It's not lechatchila. It's not supposed to be that way. But people are uncomfortable with it. But in a situation where we're in galus, right, people have to choose their derech. So how do you choose your derech? So if you're not having personal decisions, let's say you learn a sugya and you have a personal decision in the sugya. You think this is the right emes. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to do what you think.
So why do you go after the Mishnah Berurah, which is just all the what we decided. So you decided to go like this Shammai, decided to go like this.
Because since you never learned the sugya,
Let's say
if you learned the sugya and you have an opinion in the sugya, you absolutely should not do what the Mishnah Berurah says. Absolutely not. Chazal Ish writes this, Pam Malay, and all the Gedolei Yisrael are noted like this.
But everyone does. Everyone pulls out a Mishnah Berurah when they have
Because they don't know the sugya. But everybody who learned the sugya, they're mechuyev to do their Torah. Mechuyev, because that's their emes.
so if I decide everything like Beis Shammai, I should do that Beis Shammai.
Beis Shammai, the Gemara discusses, did Beis Shammai do Kedivreim or not? Right? They should have, right? And the reason Beis Shammai couldn't go to Kedivreim is because there's something called Bezdin, Sanhedrin HaGadol, that when Sanhedrin HaGadol decides something, even if you're incredible chacham, and you're charif, you're smarter, your day is batal. That's what's called Zakin Mamre. Because the Torah is not supposed to be 100 Torahs, Hashem gave us a way of deciding this is the way Am Yisrael needs to do. That's when you have Sanhedrin Lishkas HaGazis. Or in the question of Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, where they had a baskol that came out. The whole machlokas we go by baskol. Okay? Now we leave that realm. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, Divrei Beis Shammai ain't no mission, the Gemara says, right? If you do like halacha Beis Shammai, you're chayav misa because you're kofar in the baskol, you're kofar in the Masorah. But now you have a hamachlokas of Yehuda and Rav Meir. What do? So there's klalim that we developed over the time. And how do we develop these klalim? Shmuel halacha k'Shmuel bedini, because he was a baki and didn't. Rav Yisrael, because we assume he knows better. But we don't know. They had an opinion, he had an opinion. We'll go with this one because this one is probably more right. The reason the Mishnah Berurah is so powerful is because he spent 28 years learning the sugya, and he put it with all of his kochos hanefesh, and he was a big man. And we say, okay, this is a good way of doing things. Okay? Now you think you have a better way. You're going to do his way. That's the Gemara says, Mefurshim v'avas. Ein l'dayin elamasha ein avros. You have to do what you see. This is your God. This is what you think Hashem wants. You think what Hashem wants is wrong. So you can't do what he says. That's why all Gedolei Yisrael are knowing. Now, we don't have the ability to do what the Mishnah Berurah is doing because actually it's not our job. We're not going to find out how the halacha is. What is the halacha? We could sit and learn the Gemara again all the time, and as the Beis Yosef writes his Akdama, why am I better than the other people before me? They all did this, they all had opinions. Why should I now decide? What I'll do is I'll use them, right? And I'll make a decision between them, and that's the path I should do. Now you have two equal paths. Why? Because there's two days and they're equal. Now what do? The same way if you knew the sugya yourself, and you had an opinion, if you know what's good for you, now you have an opinion. And now you are responsible, in my opinion, to do what's good for you because they're both valid. It's not like I'm going and reinventing the Torah. This is a proper sheet in the Torah.
Let's see your opinion conflicts with the Mishnah Berurah's opinion. Then can you still go with your opinion?
You can do whatever you want.
Because I have free choice.
You have free choice. Now, let's say you had a business, okay, and you took Eitzah from a brilliant, successful financial advisor. And he says, this is a bad idea. You say, I think it's a good idea. Which one could you do? You could do both. Which one is a wise decision? Most probably what he said. That's what Amunas Chachamim means. I trust this makes more sense because I know where he's holding. You could do what you said.
But in Torah, if you do what you said, it can make you do things that are wrong.
Right. You know what? If you're in business, you do things like you said, you could also be in
No,
wrong.
but would that still be right? I'm saying, is it right to do something that might be wrong because you think that's right?
Why were you doing it?
Because you felt it was right.
Okay, so you think something is right, and he thinks something is wrong. What do you think you should do? You see that you phrased the question differently. I said that I decided I think it's smarter to do that because I trust him. You said, I don't trust him, I think he's wrong, and I'm going to do, should I do what I think or not? What do you think about that? How long are you going to survive doing what someone else says?
It's like if you go to a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
the doctor advises you need surgery, dafuf, right? You're going to die. But you have your own opinion. Like, no, I don't think I need it. I think I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll like take some special alternative medicine and heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big risk. That's a huge risk to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You could do it, and you might even be right,
Mm-hmm.
but you're taking that risk.
Now, many times in my life, it was a big limit for me. People came to me, asked me shilas, and I said, this is the way it is. Okay? And this is a limit for all of you. My wife said I was wrong. She never learned to sugya. But she can feel I was wrong. Why? Because she's more connected to the mitzvos than I am. Many times people know that it's not the right thing for them because they're more connected to the mitzvot than the person answering them. And therefore you have to keep that into consideration. It may be that this person is wrong in your case. If you ever learned Tshuvas Svarim are all about the individual. Which means we have this halacha, and now what do we do with this individual case? And you'll find Rabbanim going to the Ksei HaOlam to do certain things. An example, that is Rav Ovadia. He's like, Mamash, he'll go ad asov, because he understands the necessity. As an example, right? Rav Ovadia, the world was not from. Many Sfardim after his time weren't from. So what did he do? He took the Torah, and he focused on the point. What's the main point? And he got rid of all the additives. Okay? And he made Torah easy. And he caused hundreds of thousands of Jews to come back to Torah. Why did he do that? Because he understood there's an individual necessity for this door. We have to be as makel as we possibly can. Right? And by the way, if you asked him on a personal question, and he knew you, he would answer differently. But to the Am, he said like this, because he understood the situation. So when you ask the Mishnah Berurah, or you're asking a Rav, and your insides, you feel this is not right, that's a big deal. You have to check into that. Why is that?
Why, if today we know the difference between chicken and meat, I mean, everybody in this room, if I put a piece of chicken on a plate and a piece of meat, and I'll tell you which is meat, which is chicken, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the Torah says you can't have basa b'chalav, meat and milk. And then they made a gezerah that you can't have chicken and milk because you may come to eat meat, because I guess back in those days, chicken and meat looked the same.
You're making an assumption, but okay.
I mean, it must be, otherwise why would they make that gezerah?
Mm-hmm.
It was only because you might get confused. Today, there's no way you're going to get confused between a piece of chicken and a piece of meat.
Mm-hmm.
So today, now that we know exactly the difference between chicken and meat, why can't I have cheese with chicken, or chicken with a milkshake?
Now you change topics. Why?
I didn't.
I'll explain to you why. There's Torah and there's Chachamim. They're two different things. They have a different job. Torah is Hashem's plan for you to get close to Him. Chachamim is what we think is the best way to practically accomplish that goal. It's human decision. Okay? And they have their own human reasons why. And they usually have to do with, like it says, Osu mishmeres lemishmarti, which means the different midah inside of you. Let's take, for example, basar b'chalav. Why shouldn't a person eat basar b'chalav? No idea, right? You have any idea why it shouldn't be basar b'chalav?
No.
Okay, what does the Torah say? What are the words the Torah says?
The mother of the cow and the son of the cow.
Lo tivashel,
Yeah.
don't cook. Gedi b'chalev imo. And I want you to imagine that. Okay, feel it. Here's this mother. She has this child. Okay, and you're going to take her milk, you're going to shech the child, and you're going to eat the child through her own milk. How do you think that behemoth feels when you're doing that?
Well, she's dead.
You think so.
Alright, but now we're talking about chicken now.
You think so.
What do you mean?
Okay, but the Torah is telling you is an experience, right?
You think it's about how the behemoth feels?
100%. No question
You don't
about
think
it.
it's about how a person, a person's sense of caring is damaged by that?
It's the same thing, because if you're not sensitive to the reality, then you're in a bad place. So if you eat this with sensitivity, or eat this without sensitivity, you become an insensitive human being or a sensitive human
Right.
being.
But the cow doesn't know that you're cooking the.
Well, then it's not.
Yeah,
Then who
no.
cares? It's not
You
insensitive.
should care. It's not. In other words, if you're that hard-hearted to take the milk that was supposed to feed the cow and cook the cow in it, the calf in it, you're a nasty person.
Okay.
So.
I don't know if it's your in connecting to the. I personally I relate to it, but again, this is a personal thing. I think about the mother's feelings. If I was the mother, how would I feel? That's how I relate to it.
What you don't know can't hurt you, though, right?
Is that true? Let's say someone's talking about you bad on the other side of the world, but you don't know about it. Does it hurt you?
No.
Certainly does.
Well, if
It
it's
does.
somebody that you're planning on doing business deals with,
It's-
it'll hurt you by,
I enjoy it. Yeah, I get
It's certainly, but it hurts you anyway. If I sit here and I think bad thoughts about you, and then I meet you, does it impact you?
Yeah, I guess
Kemayim
it's
panim el
annoying.
panim kein nefesh leiv ha'adam. Right? Whatever I look in the water, right, that's where you're going to look back. So if I have inside of me something, it's going to impact you. Right?
So my energy, if I have that.
Right. So I don't know, I can't tell you what the energy of the animal is experiencing after it leaves this world. I don't know. But I know the Torah says that you're insensitive if you don't care about that. How? You can figure it out yourself, right? That's what the Torah leaves a person. Okay? But the midos of basar v'cholav are ones of sensitivity. And obviously, whatever you eat, that's what you become. Right? The food is your power. So whatever the food powers you, you're going to become that way. I have a friend he's a soldier. His job is to kill people. He's a hitman, among other things. We spoke a lot about stories about him. And he's a shoichet. Okay, the way he does shchita, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Okay, the reason I know this is true is because one time he was in Pikuach Nefesh. He comes to me as a Rav for Eitzah about spiritual things and ethical warfare. Okay, so one time he spoke to me and he was very sick. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm feeling very, very weak. And I'm like, this is dangerous. Okay, you need meat. So he didn't have around him any meat, and he only eats the meat he shechts. Okay, so I told his son, shecht the cow for him. So his son said to me, well, my father's rules are that the way you shecht the behema is you first separate it from the rest of the eder. Then you tell the behema, listen, what's going to happen is tomorrow I'm going to shecht you. And you let the behemoth sit there and process this thing. When the behemoth is ready, then you can shecht it. I'm telling you my shaya. Okay? And so I told his son, shecht it now. I said, my father doesn't let me shecht right away. I first have to separate it, wait a day, and then I'll do it. Okay? So I said, okay, that's very nice. I hear you, but it's pikuach nefesh. Right? So he says, ask my father. I'm not going to do it unless my father says yes. So I went back to the father, and I asked him, and he said, what did you say, Rabbi? He was making fun of me. So I said, I pikuach nefesh. He's like, it's not that bad for me to eat a murdered cow.
He calls it murder, even though he's shechting it properly, but just because he didn't wait and tell it, that I'm going to do it tomorrow.
For example, the shechita line nowadays, you know how it looks?
No.
Completely achzariyut. Complete achzariyut. If we think that's kosher, we're kind of crazy. It's exactly the way the shechita is, but it misses the midos. Meaning to say, the impact on a human being won't be different just because they practically kept Shulchan Aruch, because the midos behind it is achzarius, and that's what you're eating in the cow.
Like if they take chickens and shove them in a cage and mistreat them, you're saying, even if you do the shechita perfectly, that's
You missed the point.
So we're eating treif, you're saying.
I don't want to say the words exactly like that, but the midos are definitely off.
Who said that's the evidence for the shepherd?
Because This is what we're learning. The whole point of mitzvos is not an action. Is the whole point of the mitzvah of you putting black boxes on your head? Is the whole point of holding your knife in this way? That's what Chazal say. There's a medrash. It says, Ma ichpas la kodesh baruch hu. If you shecht it from the neck or shecht it from the back. Machpatlo. Ella, the whole kavanah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was litzaref lehem es abrios. To refine human beings. He doesn't care. He cares because it impacts you. If you shecht it like this, you become like this.
Okay, let me ask you this. Shloch HaKen, right? Shloch HaKen, you send away the mother bird and you take the eggs.
Right.
This really bothered me because I hear the sensitivity. It's a beautiful thing, right? You see a mother bird, you want to take the eggs. Don't let the mother watch as you take her children away, so you shoot her at beautiful. Except you have people going around looking for a mother and the eggs so they could do the mitzvah. They don't even want the eggs. They throw the eggs out, but they did the mitzvah. I did the mitzvah shloch HaKen.
What do you think about that?
I think it's klum. I think it's crazy.
The people that keep them in boxes and the silver covered.
Never, but you're taking eggs you don't even want, and you're just doing it for the mitzvah, because now I got the mitzvah. Is that normal?
What do you think?
No, but people do it.
Okay, so what do you think?
I don't think that's what the Torah meant when it said, send away the mother bird.
So you're going to do it?
If you need to get the eggs, do this.
So you're going to do it?
I wouldn't do it.
Good. Now it's up to them to explain what they think, right?
Right.
Go ask them. Because it's the outcome that they want to get from it, not the eggs, but it's other outcome.
So they think that the point of mitzvos is brownie points.
No, there's other outcome. I don't know. People helping with kids and stuff.
What? In other words, they want something.
Exactly.
It's similar to like this.
So you said you have to want the egg. Maybe you can want the other thing.
Okay, so I want something. The only thing is that in order for me to do it, I have to cause you pain. But I wanted something. It's very beneficial for me.
Okay, but that's the same thing if you want the egg. What's the difference? The whole, if you want the egg as well, you're still doing the same to get the egg.
Good question.
I'm doing the
Excellent question. So is it okay to use animals in a way that causes them pain?
Yes.
Well, obviously yes, if that's the mitzvah.
Or it depends, actually.
What does it depend on?
Well, you can't just do it for your pleasure. If I want to go and hunt animals for fun, you can't do that. But if I want to eat the animal, I can. This is where it kind of gets a little tricky, because
If you look in Even HaEzer, I think it's in Siman Hay, in the end, the Trumas Hadeshin, which discusses this whole topic. He says animals were given to humans, so what can we do, what can't we do? And one of the things he brings over there is Rebbe got an onesh when the calf came and ran away from Shechita, and Rebbe said, Ba'achzarius, go do your tafkid. Rebbe had 13 years of Yisurim for that. Tooth pain.
Tooth pain?
Pain in his tooth. 13 years, I think it was 13 years. Now, you have to understand that whole story. Obviously, it wasn't like, schar v'onesh straight, right? But there was a point. So these are all mitos. These are all personal growth. Right? You can do the mitzvah bottom line. Yes, the animals are given to me. You can do it with mitos and tukanos. Should you kill a bug, not kill a bug? He's annoying you. Fly around. Right? So the people who learned Sisrei Torah, and they wanted to be close to the mitos of Hashem, they never killed a bug. Because they don't want to be a killer. This is a purpose in life, in the world.
Maybe it's purpose to get killed now.
I mean, it could be. Why would that be a purpose, though? Because I like it. So, ani v'afsiot, I'm the whole purpose of the world, and whatever bothers me, I decide. And even though this bug has a creation in the world, but it bothers me. Think about that when you have people. I know people like that. Seriously. See, they're mitos. What's the halacha say?
Different rules regarding animals and people, isn't it?
Oh, that's a question. You can live like that, or you can be so refined that you actually treat animals with the same type of mitos you treat human beings.
Could be. So they're
Right.
not going to eat meat and stuff.
So you could either not eat meat, like they did before Noach. No one ate meat for that reason. It was usher to eat meat, usher to kill anything. Or you could be super refined, like my brother, who is very careful in how he shechita, that there's no achzarius to the animal, because he's telling the animal, I got a great deal for you. You can now leave the animal kingdom which is one level of existence, and you can become a human. Yeah, you'll have to like change rooms. It's similar to what Hashem says to a soldier who's about to give himself over to dying. He says to him, listen, my little soldier, listen, you're going to die, but when you do this, you're going to change the entire world and become closer to me. You want it? And the neshama says, Yalla. So the animal, even its lower self says, I don't want to die. It runs away, right? And its higher self says, Yalla. If you're in tune with that reality, then you are never an achzari. If you aren't in tune with that reality, then you think, Ani v'afsiyot, I'm the whole merkaz of the world, and I take animals and I do what I want with them.
Yeah, you could like believe in that reality and still not talk to it, like just know it. You said you have to talk to it.
You're not talking about rules, you're talking about mitos.
Straight away, I still feel that way.
You could. He didn't feel that worked, so he did it that way. Does that mean it's halacha? It means that's how he developed his mitos.
How we do just maybe that's.
This person, by the way, is the most sensitive human being in the world that I've ever seen in my life. He's killed more people than I can even imagine, right? But he's so incredibly compassionate. And I told you that when he goes to war, they have a little huddle beforehand, and the first tefillah they daven is they should fight with compassion. We're talking about mechablim. We're talking about people who blow people up. And he's fighting with compassion. And he has pain for every person he killed because he doesn't want to kill. And he thinks about the mother and the father of that person and the children of that person, and it bothers him till this day. That's a person who I want to eat his meat. You could do it your way, but you could understand that a person chose to do it that way because it's the most developed version of this process that he could think of. That's why it's not a halacha, because it's personal. And you'll decide how you would want to have
But I
shkita.
don't give a time limit. I mean, it's his choice if he wants to do a whole day and stuff. Isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
He obviously has a reason for the day, right? It's not stam, he didn't make it up. He thought about it and he came to that conclusion. You would come to a different conclusion, and that will be right for you. If you are allowed to think. If you're not allowed to think and just do what it says in the Mishnah Berurah, then you're not going to have any development side of yourself, obviously. Right? Okay, so why did I bring that whole thing up? That was a diversion, because I was trying to explain to you what are the midos of lo tavash al kativ b'chalei v'imo. Now, when you eat a chicken and an egg, right, it's not possible, a chicken doesn't have chalav. Okay? That's why in Torah it's totally fine, because there's no bad midos there. Okay, so the
the same idea. The chicken grew from the egg, he eats from the yolk and the egg when it's in there. That's also the source of life, his source of life.
Okay, so now you have to think about what Chazal were trying to do. Were Chazal simply doing what you said, which is like, people are going to get all mixed up, right? Like the words simply mean gzera atu zeh, or do they mean something like you said? That they're not only trying to refine us to the point where we think about achzarius in terms of when it's really that animal, it's the milk of that animal, even the source of that animal, which is far removed, also that. It could be that you're saying is true with Chazal. Chazal they hid a lot of what they said in words, right? And we have to learn Chazal, when we learn the point of the mitzvah, and then you have a second question, what were the Chachamim trying to accomplish with their gzeira?
But why can't I have scrambled eggs with chicken?
Right. It's the same.
Okay, so that's that. Then you have to decide if that's a good answer or not. This is called limud, right? So this is a good discussion. We're not learning Basar B'Chalav now, but it's a very good question. But I'm just giving you a point of there's different Chazal have different things they're trying to accomplish, and that's why the Vilna Gaon says the tamim of Chazal were always hidden. They tell you something very technical, but they never told you the hidden parts because it's panimi. But they're einei ha'eda, they're giving you an eitzah that the most mushlam way of getting to the point of the Torah is through our words. And it will take an eon, and every single time Chazal say something, what are they thinking? And if you think you're going to decide, that a halacha is not relevant because of kach v'kach v'kach, right? You have to realize there was something much greater, like we spoke about before, much greater than in the realm of things that they're trying to accomplish than you can even imagine. Now you have to decide if you care. Maybe you don't care. Maybe the only thing you want to focus on in your life now is the Torah. Lo savash al gadi b'chalei v'imo. And you won't keep the Rabbanans. And you'll have the ramifications of not keeping the Rabbanans.
The what? The Rabbanans?
Yeah.
What's that?
The Chachamim, what they added. In other words, it's also bechira. What happens if a person doesn't keep divrei chachamim? Chayiv misa. What does that mean? It means as a Hashem goes.
Well, if there was a base, then yes.
No, it's not Mises
What do
Bezdin.
you call it?
It's not Mises Bezdin.
It's all about code.
It's not Karas either. Karas is a din Torah.
Okay, Malchus for sure.
Next world.
What?
Malchus.
By the way, the Chayiv Misa that Chazal say are talking about it based on a midah. That I don't care, I think the Chacham are stupid. It's a bad midah. Okay, but let's say a person says, listen, we'll talk about it in a simple way. Everybody can relate to this. A person's a Baal Tshuva, okay? Doesn't keep halach. He says, I want to mitchazek. Harav tagili. And you get the harav. I'm telling you, I can keep the rice. The rabban is too much. Is that a good mahalach?
Right.
That's a good start.
Good start. Now, we're not Balei Tshuva. We're 13 years old and we're trying to keep the Torah. Okay? And it's too much. Could he make that decision also?
Yeah.
He could. Will he lose from that? Yes. You know what he'll lose from that? He'll lose the Rabbanans. What is it, the Rabbanans? They have inherent value. You make an investment in the company and you keep the basic rules, but you don't keep the eitzah of this chacham who's a brilliant financial advisor. You're going to make some money. You're going to lose some money. It's a decision. You can decide. Now, sometimes people are not capable of doing things. So they say, it's a great idea. I have tremendous kavod for you. I'm not going to do it because I can't. And I'm waiting till I can. Right? That's a process. But you have to understand, Chachamim are giving you, if you want to understand meaning of things and you want to connect to them for real, you have to understand that the Torah and the Chacham are doing two different things. And therefore you should look at it as a separate thing. It's very important to teach people what's Derabanan and what's Deraisa. I give you an example. Chilul Shabbos, right? So, people, when they think about Chilul Shabbos, they think about Muksa. Right? Now, is there anything wrong with moving a rock?
What?
A rock.
Moving around.
Did you do anything? If you want to connect to the essence of Shabbos, which is don't create, like Hashem created, stop creating. When you move a rock, you're creating something?
Yeah.
So if you want to teach a person the essence of Shabbos, then they look at a rock and they say, that's stupid. Why shouldn't I move a rock? Right? So either what happens is they lose the mashma'ut of Iker of Shabbos because they think it's all about moving rocks and they can't connect to it, right? Or they decide that's not the same thing. If you teach people the difference from the Rabbanans, then they can have this is creative. I'm not going to do this. Well, I don't want to do this. Now let's me connect to why I shouldn't move a rock. And they'll be happy to do that and understand the difference in the two of them. Where does that express itself in Chazal? Very simple. Let's say you have a rock, right? And it's going to cause nezek to somebody. Right? What do you do halacha l'maisa? You move it. If it's going to cause nezek to somebody and you're going to, not pikuach nefesh, but someone's going to, someone's going to get a little turbo already. Are you going to suddenly turn on a light? No. Why not? Because they're different things. Well, if you don't connect to the differences, then you won't be able to, these halachos will make no sense to you and you won't live them. They'll look like a game, right? When you go to the Rav and he says, I love this, my favorite line, the Rav gave me a heter. Now translate the words, what does that mean? He gave me a heter. He's God. And it's a good thing he said so because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it, right? He gave me a heter. It means it has no meaning. The halacha is mufurish ataz, that if you want to teach someone halacha, you have to teach them the reason why this is the rule. And if you don't differentiate between the Rabbanos and the Raithas, what?
What's a chok?
Chok is one part of the Torah. Most of the things he didn't leave like that, and he wanted to have one relationship with him where things are more gavoa than you, and you have trust. That's like we said before, there's a whole way to do the Torah from trust. And he wants that relationship with you. Sometimes. Right? If you have children and you have things you teach them, right? And sometimes they're not holding my understanding what you're saying. So you try to explain to them and they don't get it. What would you say?
Trust me.
If you have a good relationship, he'll do it. Now, all of this was to come to the point. What we're trying to figure out in Hilchos Tefillin is the point of Tefillin. How would we get to learning the point of Tefillin? Well, isn't it interesting that what we wear on the tefillin is the parshios? So it would be kind of wise to learn the parshios inside, right? Translate them in my meaningful way at a level of pshat, right? And then after that, look at the halachos and see if that's a reflection of what I'm understanding. If the halachos flow nicely, then that's very meaningful. If they don't, then I go back to the drawing board and say I missed something. That's why the halachos are a guide to understanding the pnimius of a mitzvah. But if you don't try to get the pnimius of the mitzvah, the halacha is meaningless to you. So you have to do both. Learn the chumash, Torah shebichsav, and then afterwards go to the mitzvah and see if they fit together. Right? So for example, if you decide totafos are like this, I don't know, this thing that a snake and you wear it on your head. You look in Chachamim and it says it's four things. You obviously missed the point that there's something about the fact that it's 4 different sections, right? Has a lot to do with the pnimius of the mitzvah that you missed if you wouldn't have 4 different sections. So, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or feelings about what we just learned until now?
You don't have to have a reason.
A human being never does something with no reason. Ever.
People give the reason for like shechita because it's merciful. But that's not the reason, it's just an outcome.
Okay. The reason is not what we're trying to learn. Because the reason is too broad for any human being to conceptualize, because it's something that has to do with the entire creation of the world and has its manifestation is at an Ein Sof level. We're talking about your reason. Is there anything, you ever done anything without any reason?
Sure.
Yeah.
No reason?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
I have to think about it, but I'm sure I did something with like no reason.
There was always a motivating factor. Ever did something with no reason?
No, like I have a thing about like the shafting thing that you said.
Okay, just 1 second. I want to finish this thought, okay? There's no such thing as a human being that's not doing any motivating factor in themselves.
Bris Milah.
But the reason why people do it,
Yeah.
why did you did a bris milah? Why did you do a bris milah on your kids?
Torah says to do it.
And why? Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
I
Why do you care?
want to keep the Torah.
Why? You see, you can always ask why. At some point, you'll get to the bottom line. Usually, it has to do with ava and yira, either schar va'onesh or something higher than that. But there's never something a person does without any reasons. The question is how developed you are in that reason. For example, a person goes to work every day. Okay, they make money. Why do they do that? Well, they could do it for money. How long does that last? Pretty sucky life, right? But if you do something you believe in, and it also makes money, you have more of a reason to do it, right? So you always have reasons. Even a chok, there's a reason why you're doing it, because you have a relationship of trust. So there always is a reason. What we're trying to develop is a higher version of reason that it relates to all parts of myself. The same way, if I work for a living, so my basic human desire to live, to eat food and have a house, motivates me to work. But the part of me, myself, that looks for meaning is not satisfied. If I develop my understanding of the world, I say, wow, I have real meaning. Then another part of me is developed. If I understand that the fact that I have meaning to the world connects me to God, then I have another part of myself engaged in that, called my neshama. It's really up to you how much you engage all parts of yourself in every action you do. But you're always going to have a reason. Impossible not to have a reason. Because you're a Tzelem Elohim. You do things because of a hachlata, because of bechira. The only time you can have a person who doesn't do it a reason is if you break them completely and make them an eved, and even that's not possible by a human. But theoretically, you could like totally make someone a robot. But they're always, at the end of the day, it's not really true. What was your question about shechita?
Like you said that everyone's doing it now, like not in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't be eating meat anymore.
That's your decision.
Do you eat meat?
To be honest, I really, really don't want to eat the meat, and I feel like a Baal Tshuva, that when I get strong enough, I'm going to stop eating the meat of the gufei kashrus.
But you can't eat
That's my personal opinion.
Wait, if someone does personal shvita,
I would be very happy to eat it.
you'll eat it.
Do you agree with vegans? Are you like,
Well, you ask my personal opinion. I mean, I don't know why that's relevant to them. What do I think about it?
about vegans?
Well, I know that before Noach, no one ate meat.
Because they're saying that also like that it's also evil like to eat living animals and
Right. So I agree with him conceptually, except that I also understand that it could not be evil to those animals if you do it in a certain way. And therefore, I don't have a problem doing it in that way because I think it's actually a big chesed to that animal, the loving act to that animal. And the reason they don't agree with that maybe is because they're not doing it that way. If they did it like my friend, they might be really inspired.
the reason I don't 100% like get you is because it's like the fact that like a cat eats a mouse and we eat meat, you know, it's not like you don't have to like of course there's ways to do it, but like having care for it and all that, I don't know, you know, it's just the fact that we eat those type of stuff like.
The world is not metukan. When Mashiach comes, a lion won't eat a sheep. The world now has a lot of negativity in it. So the life you see expresses that. Does that mean you want to be in that energy, or do you want to change that energy? It's up to you. You can decide. So it could be one of the ways that person thinks they're going to change that energy is being vegetarian. And according to their kavana and according to their reality, they're doing that. So I would say, nah, that's stupid. Right? My brother is doing it a different way. He's having incredible compassion to this animal, and he's changing the world that direction. Everybody's going on a different path.
They can't be right, because we've got like shchita in the base to make this and stuff like what's
Do you think that an animal that is now going to be representing a Jewish person going up and connecting to God is not happy about that?
It's not the point if he's happy or not, it's the fact that you're killing it and all the mitzvos. It's still
What about the
the
Naz Azel?
Why do you think the mitos are bad? He's tying this animal, he puts his head on this animal, and he has incredible kavanah that this animal is now going to be a way of us, our neshama, connecting to Hashem. Why do you think that's a chazariyut?
But you eating it also, because you're serving Hashem and you eating it.
Is that what's going on inside of you? You think you care about the animal? It's all mitos.
Yeah, but by you eating an animal, it helps you with your mitzvah.
So if you care about I'm asking you inside of yourself, do you care about the animal or care about yourself? You can't lie about this. It's either true or not true.
You care about yourself also when you go to this, it's also
Don't say that for anything.
You could. Now, you're looking at the Beis HaMikdash like that. Okay? I bet you my brother looks at the Beis HaMikdash and says they had an incredible deep relationship with every carbon, and the carbon was happy to do that. That's what I bet you he would say.
Yeah, but it's still for yourself. Let's say you didn't have very and you have to give a carbon. You're still doing it for yourself.
Why? You don't think that animal benefits being part of that?
It does, but do not think it benefits when it gets shackled that you eat it as well.
When you get married, okay? Why are you getting married?
I don't know, that's why I'm not getting married.
Probably when you get married, it's going to be for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Are you going to think about her?
Yeah.
Some people do, some people don't. If you're thinking about her only to make yourself happy, then you have a certain level of sensitivity. If you're thinking about both of you all the time, then a different, more developed level of sensitivity, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how much you're connected to the world, how much really means how much you're connected to Hashem, that defines your sensitivity. So if I have sensitivity to this animal, then I'm deeply connected to this animal. And I won't do something which is negative for this animal, even though it's good for myself. If I'm not that developed, then I don't care about the
No, I'm
animal.
just trying to say it can't be that it's right to do like before Noah because you see in the base of English you still have to get some.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. You're saying since it's a chiyuv to eat basar shlamim,
Yeah, you see it.
right? Now, do you
See,
think
it's
that the
not
world?
true anymore like before Noah.
Do you think that the
They-
world?
They could eat if they found a dead one.
What'd you say?
They could eat meat if they found dead cows.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. For now.
I don't think that's. I don't know. Like, you're right. It says that you can't kill, but I doubt it that's a good thing to do, especially since nevela is definitely not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So I doubt it, but I don't know. It could be you're right. I don't think so. But now you're deciding the Beis Hamikdash is a simon. You think the world where the Beis Hamikdash is the same world with the world without the Beis Hamikdash?
No, because you see that there was a kavanah so you could eat all around like well, it's not.
Right. When the consciousness of the Beis Hamikdash is around, maybe people are more developed, and they have better relationship with animals, as opposed to when there's no Beis Hamikdash, it could be achzariut. It's not really a proof. Depends on what you.
That we're not carrying on anymore now. The before now.
Correct.
So
But Noach could be an idealism that has a lot of expressions. And it could be that in the light of the situation in your life, it could be that's the best expression for you.
It changed because before now they still gave korbanos, no? It's just that you never ate from it.
The karbanas, I think, of Cain and Hevel were not shechted.
They were just burned. Exactly. They're all
No, I don't think they. I would assume when it says in the tzon, it means the samer, right?
But not that strong.
Probably not. You're not allowed to kill.
So what was the whole thing about his one was bigger than the other one? What the war?
They were nicer. Doesn't mean they were necessarily a fatter animal.
So what happened to the sheep?
What? The sheep was a very happy sheep.
Just
And went on.
consecrated.
Kenan smiled and had a good life.
Wait, how's this shirt fitted?
Good question. Diverted.
It's made out.
What we're trying to learn about tefillin, what I would like to do, and we're not going to get to it today, is I would like to give out the psukim of tefillin, okay, and have us learn it. We can discuss how to do that practically, and then see what everybody gets from the point of tefillin before we open any halachas. And then when we have this clear, and this clear means your own personal experience, then we start learning the halachas, you're going to see, wow, that's an expression of that. That's not an expression of that. And it'll suddenly make the halachas very meaningful. You understand?
Yeah.
Interested?
Yeah.
So now I have a practical question. Right now, the forum that we're doing it is we're having a discussion, which is great. It's a little bit tiring for people because they have to pay attention and stuff. I suggest that when we learn the psukim, we separate into chavrusas, and there's a certain amount of time of discussion between the chavrusas, then we come back and do discussion time. Some people in this generation do not like to read. Do not like to read, and they like to read Ivrit for sure not, Lashon Kodesh for sure not. So I've had serious hitnag due to that mahalach. So I'm curious, what would you like?
I'm fine with should I switch this on?
Whatever. Yeah.
The bread button?
Mm-hmm.